Hey guys, welcome back to LS Vintage Design. I'm Lisa. How's everyone doing? I hope you are having an amazing January 1st, 2024. That just blows my mind. And every year that a new year rolls around, another year becomes vintage, which is also crazy to think about. And of course, being LS Vintage Design, I think about it that way. But today I am starting a new series. It'll be once a week until we're done. And what it is we are redecorating your home, your apartment on a budget with a vintage look, a vintage flair, something unique because you have to admit, not everybody does that. But it doesn't have to be with true vintage. You can achieve a vintage look using a mix of vintage, modern, and repop. And I'm going to talk about it all in this new series. Also, next Friday, January 12th, we will have our first episode of Cooking Vintage. I am so excited. So be sure and mark your calendars. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and that little bell because you don't want to miss out. It's going to be a great video. Decorating vintage, and we're going to talk about paint. Paint for your walls. And I know you're already looking at me going, I don't want to use vintage paint. It's got chemicals, blah, blah, blah. If any even survived, yes. I'm not talking about using vintage paint. I'm talking about using paint today in colors that represent the decades gone past. I'm talking about checking out some paint lines have a vintage palette, color palette. Benjamin Moore, it's not sponsored, it's just Benjamin Moore has a vintage color palette. The colors are beautiful. Go check it out. So you could use that, or you could just use paint colors and get an updated vintage feel. Green. 70s was avocado green. Maybe you don't want avocado green in your home. Go pick a modern version of avocado green that you do like. Beautiful, beautiful. Green is a hot color, beautiful on walls. Turquoise. Maybe you don't want turquoise. Go pick out the blue color that is speaking to you. Blue Nova is the #1 interior design color for 2024. So you can paint a room any color you want to get a vintage feel. You just pick the vintage color you like and then modernize it with today's many paint colors. I mean, there's way more paint colors today than there were, 50 years ago. Also, did you know that not only do you have to paint a wall solid, but you could mimic a vintage wallpaper with paint? Because let me tell you, one way to freshen a space, update a space, change a space is with paint. It's one of the least expensive ways. I'm not saying it's cheap, but it's one of the least expensive ways to change your space. And it's a great way to make your space more you, if you're allowed to paint. You could paint a wallpaper pattern on your wall. You could also, remember in the 50s, you see the diners and black and white check floors. If you own your home, you could also paint your floors. You could do the check pattern, but you could pick a more modern version, like a gray white, a dark gray white, medium gray white. You could also do a color in white, a red and white, or a navy in white, or blue Nova in white. Paint is very easy to manipulate. Okay, but what if you live in an apartment and they're like, yes, you offered to repaint after you paint, but they won't let you do that. They have the removable wallpaper, and you can get vintage patterns in that. Wallpaper is another great way to get a modern product with a vintage vibe. But you may not want to wallpaper your home either. Again, removable wallpaper. You can also use contact paper, shelf liner. They have great vintage looking shelf liners. You could put that inside a door, a cabinet door. You could put your removable wallpaper inside a cabinet door if you own your home. If you're renting, I would stick to walls. But if you're renting and you want to add a little color into your cabinet panels, get some cardboard, cut it to fit snugly, paint it or wallpaper it, whatever you want, and snap it in. Make it snug so when you put it in there, it doesn't fall out. That's a great way to add a vintage flair to a modern apartment or home. So guys, we will be back on Friday. Friday? No, Friday's something different. Friday, we're finally altering that painting. So on Monday, we will be back with our second installment of redecorating your home on a budget with vintage flair or a vintage look. And next, we're going to talk about vintage rugs, curtains, textiles. I'll see you then, guys. Bye-bye. Take care.